Hey, it's great to be on this phone call today with you. Thanks so much for dialing in. We're going to talk about an interesting subject today. It's all around trance states. And trance states can be pretty insidious. But before we start, I just want to say, why would I be talking to you about a trance state? Well, if you want to be able to have a great day, have great relationships, increase your ability to reach out into the areas that you want to reach out in so you can accomplish what you want, big dreams, little dreams, more love, more wealth, more prosperity, just being your true self. You need to be able to, first of all, be present and be in the moment as yourself. But if you're in a trance state, obviously, that's not you being here now. So it's a pretty important piece of information. And that's when we're going to talk about trance states today. So how do you know if you're in a trance? Well, have you ever gone to a meeting and forgot some things that you needed in the meeting? Have you ever started to introduce yourself to somebody, or maybe you were with a best friend and you went to introduce the person to another friend and you forgot their name when you've been knowing that person for 20 or 30 years? That's a trance state. The other thing is, some other ways this will show up is, have you ever like driven to the store and maybe there's several streets you pass before you get to the store, and maybe there are several landmarks like maybe a post office or a gas station or something like that, and you're at the store and you don't even remember passing by those streets or passing by the post office that you pass by every time you go to that store. That's a trance state. Forgetting to mail the check-in that had a deadline date in it. That's a trance state. So some of these are very, very subtle, and they seem like sometimes people will say, well, I'm just getting older. No, you might be getting older, but that's not what that is. That is known as a trance state. So the first step in order to break out of a trance state, again, goes back to something that I talk a lot about, and that is being able to be present. And that is the skill that if you want to break yourself out of a trance state, that if you increase your presence, practice that a little bit each day, that will break you out of a trance state, because that's more of you here. Now your attention is here. Another little exercise you can do is, there's two things, and these are key points. So the next thing is, don't take anything for granted. Nothing for granted. Now, why would I say that? Because in order not to take anything for granted, you have to be in a state of gratitude. So if you're in a state of gratitude, the only way you can be in a state of gratitude and appreciation is to be present with yourself and your surroundings, because then you can see things that you are appreciative of, things that you don't take for granted. But if you're absent, you won't even see what's in front of you. So the second thing is, if you want to increase being present here and now, have gratitude, be present, notice every single thing around you. Don't take anything for granted, whether it's how clean the floor is, whether it's, someone picked a bouquet of flowers and set them on the table this morning. Well, that's their job, you may say. Well, it might be their job, but there's a lot of love and care that goes into that whole process, if you will. So don't take things for granted. And then another little exercise you can do, and this is very powerful. I did this back in 2004 when I first came to work here. And one of my coaches gave me this exercise to do. So before any action step that I took, I had a little notebook and I wrote down my intentions. So let's say that at lunch, I needed to drive over to my boss's house and cook lunch and yada, yada, yada. So basically, what I would do is I would write down, walk to the car, drive over to boss's house. Then when I got there, I would say, cook a great lunch. That was my intention. Why did I do that? Because it kept me in the present moment versus running on automatic, versus being in a trance state. And my results were so much different. My mood level was very, very different. Why? Because I wasn't doing things on automatic. You know, the way you know if you're in a trance state is really simple. And I'd probably write this down. A trance, and when you're in a trance state, you cannot think or you cannot act in an area. So, you know, I didn't do well in school when it came to arithmetic or math. So there was a trance state there. How do I know that? Because I don't think well in math. Well, there's an exercise, there's a process for that. So presence, not taking anything for granted, and having gratitude. And then looking at your intention for every action step you're going to take will break you out of the trance state. But the number one first step is you being here now in this moment. And you can practice that as well. Set your clock for 1 minute, look in the mirror if you're by yourself, and just be here for 1 minute. Or if you don't want to look in the mirror, sit on the couch or a comfortable chair, set your clock, and just practice being there for 1 minute. And write